Hello, in this episode of Exploring Rust, I'm going to try to pass things to functions using traits to specify the parameter types, and I'm also going to try returning something from a function using a trait. So in case you've not seen previous videos, this is basically me learning Rust. I don't know Rust well enough at the moment to make an actual proper tutorial about it, so I'm just basically documenting my progress. And you probably can learn Rust from these videos, but there's going to be a lot of mistakes in here, I have to warn you. So the first thing I want to do, I have already run through this code because it's getting really complicated at this point in the Rust documentation, which I'm working through. And I've decided the thing to do here is create a kind of struct and put it in its own file, because I need practice with that anyway. So I've got main.rs automatically generated by Cargo. I'm going to right click and create a new file called book.rs. And then in there I'm going to create a struct book, and in there I'll have author, which is going to be of type string, and title, which is going to be of type string. So to make the Rust compiler actually look at this, I've got to go to main.rs and put above here mod book, I think, because that's the name of the file. And then I still won't be able to make use of book because everything is private by default. I have to make the struct public and I have to make both of the fields public, otherwise I won't be able to access them anywhere else. Now I think I should be able to say let book equal book. I might have to put a use statement in there as well, actually. Let's say book, and something's gone wrong with my kind of tabs here, but I'll use the formatter to fix that in a minute. So let's say author Charles Dickens, and then we'll have title A Tale of Two Cities. All right, now I think I'll have to definitely have a semicolon there. And at the top, I think I'll probably have to say use book : book. And that's probably okay. So let's try it. So I'm going to do cargo format. Well, that went all right. And cargo run. Should be no output. Okay, we've got some problems already. Yeah, of course. I know what's happened here. So I said that author and title are of type string. And that means I have to convert this text, which is some kind of raw string, to an actual string type using, for example, the toString method or whatever it is, function, not really sure. And then I should be able to do cargo run, still not. Okay, I'm getting unused variable warnings. I hate those. They are useful when you're programming, but when you're just trying to write demo code to see if you understand it, they're quite unpleasant. So I'm going to put at the top here, allow unused, to turn off this checking of whether I've used all my variables or not. Now cargo run, okay, it works, good. So the next thing is I want to define a couple of traits. I'm going to need two of them for demonstration purposes here. So I'll put those in their own file as well. So I'm going to right click source, create a new file, and I don't know what to call this, let's just call it details.rs. And in there I can define some traits, which later on I can apply to this book type. Let's have a pub trait author, and so I need one or more functions in here. I'm going to create a function called author with a lowercase a, and because I want that to be attached to my struct, I'm going to put self in here, and that's going to return a string which will be the author of the book. And I want another one of those as well. Let's have another, which I'll call title. This is a bit of an artificial example, but this is what I came up with given my limited knowledge of Rust, and this seems to work okay. So I have to load this details module from somewhere. I only initially planned to use it here in book.rs, but it doesn't seem to go well if I try to load this module from another module. So the easiest thing to do seems to be just to load it from main.rs. So I need to say mod details to actually get the compiler to actually look at the file, and presumably I can then use it in book. If I say here use details : author, and title. That might work. Let's see. So cargo format. Okay, that didn't complain. That's a good sign. And cargo run. Now I've got a load of problems. Use details title. A similar path exists. Crate : details. I did run into this before. What did I do to fix it? I might have done this. So maybe it's just that this is a relative path. And because I'm in a different module, maybe it doesn't quite know where to load it from. Let's try putting crate : there. So we're kind of loading it from the root and there as well. And we'll see if that helps. That didn't work. Oh wait, I've got some, just a case issue here. That should be title. Does this work? Ah, that actually works. Okay, good. So it doesn't seem like it works without this, which I'm pretty sure it would if I put that in main.rs. But here it just doesn't like that. So I do need to specify the crate root, I suppose it's called. Now what I want to do is, so I've got these traits. I've got this book type. I want to make my books implement these traits. So to do that, if I remember correctly, I need to say impl author for book. And then whatever's in author here, I can just implement that. So let's put that in here. Get rid of the semicolon, put these braces in, and I'm just going to make that return author. Shouldn't that actually be a reference? I think it probably should, because otherwise I'm going to have problems with copying the string around. So let's make the return types of these functions references to strings, so these methods can return references to the strings that exist in the struct when I finally create a struct. Well, I've created one here actually. Okay, so in book.rs, this should return a reference, a immutable reference to the author, and I'll just check if that works, so I'm not really sure. So I run the formatter again and run. Yeah, I meant to use self.author here. That's the point of self, so you can reference fields in the struct. And now if I try it, still doesn't like that. What's the problem now? Expected reference to a string and found string. Should it be that? I think it should. Right, so we'll try that. Yep, that works now. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and we'll create a title as well. We'll implement that for book, except, okay, now this has to be title and this has to be self.title. This, I'm sort of almost thinking this would be a lot easier in Java, but would it really? I suppose the syntax here is a little bit more complicated in Rust. In Java, we'll be defining interfaces and then we'll be implementing interfaces. Not really all that different. All right, so let's try cargo run. That's okay. Now, maybe the simplest thing to do here is create a function that returns something that implements both of these traits. That's what I'd like to do to start with. Or let's just go for one trait to start with. So I'll put this in my main file here, maybe make this a bit smaller, and I'm going to have a function. I'll call it maybe get author, and that's going to return something that implements the author trait. So apparently here I have to use the keyword impl, and I say impl author, if I've remembered this correctly, which is a big if. So I'm going to take this book and put it in this function. I need to get rid of that semicolon, so I want this expression to be the return value of this function. And then here in my main function, I'm just going to say let book equal, wait a minute, I didn't want to do that, did I? I meant to say get book, but that's not going to be any good. I think I should be able to return book here because book implements author. But once I've done this, I don't think I can get anything from it apart from the author. Anyway, this is a good first kind of jumping off point. So let's say get author and see if that works. So this should be able to return anything that implements the author trait, I think. And what I'll get back will actually be a book. That's my thinking at the moment. And then I can probably do something like print line and let's here use book.author. It should have an author method because it implements the author trait. So let's try that. Oh yeah, so it says implement author. Okay, author not found in this scope, because I've got to also say that I want to use the author trait here. So let's say use details, which is the file I put it in, colon, author. And I'll do the same for title as well. And here, see, these are relative specifications. So I don't need to put crate here because we're in the, what is it called? The root crate root. We're in the crate root. So I can use relative imports here, whereas in book, I'm forced to specify crate colon at the start. So let's try that. Okay, that actually works when I get Charles Dickens coming out. I don't think I could use title here though, because how do we know if this thing implements the title trait? And if we don't know what traits it implements, how do we know that we can call title on it? So this probably won't work. Let's try it. Yeah, so it won't do this. It says method not found in impl author. So it's kind of relying on that implementation for that particular trait. However, I can make this work because you're allowed to say that the thing you're returning implements multiple traits. So I could put here author plus title, I think, and then I should be able to do that. Let's try that. Yeah, so that works, and it says A Tale of Two Cities down there. Let's just run that again. There we go. So now I should be able to get at the author and the title. So we just have this plus to list the traits that we're using here. Now, that's returning things via their traits. What about if I want to use a trait as a parameter? And there seem to be basically 3 different ways of doing it. So let's try to do this. So supposing I want to pass something to a function that implements a trait, for example, the author trait that I've got here. Let's say function show author, I'll call it. And the parameter will be something which I'll call item that implements the author trait. Now, how do I write that? I think here I also need impl author. So when you're referring to the trait, you need this impl keyword, I think. And since I want this to be a reference, I don't want to have to involve myself with copying things, cloning things. I put the kind of reference symbol right there. And then I believe I should be able to do, for example, print line, and let's try to print something out. So item.author ought to work here, if I've got this right. And I want to be able to use that by doing show author and passing in book, except I want to pass a reference to the book as I've just specified right here. Okay, so if I go to cargo run, that works and it says Charles Dickens. Okay, so I have remembered that correctly. Now, what if I want to get the author and the title? So I want to say that this implements multiple traits. Let's create a copy of it, and I'll call this show details. Now we need a bracket around this whole thing. We need brackets around it. So this is going to apply to everything in the brackets, I suppose. And I just need to say author plus title. So it implements both of them. And then I can say, okay, so let's have title by author. And I need to supply item.title here. Okay, and then I should be able to do show details. So let's try this. I'll leave that show author in. If I just duplicate that, we'll have show author here, and then we'll have show details. So this should print the author and the title. I'll go and run it. And now we've got A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Now this isn't the only way of doing this. So I want kind of another example here. Let's create something like maybe print author. That would be a good one. So we'll have another function that does the same thing, but I'll call it print author. And apparently this is just syntactic sugar for the following. So I could put a generic type here, like T, round brackets there, and then the thing I want to pass in, let's call that item and say it's of type T. In fact, a reference to whatever T is. And we want to add some kind of bounds to T. So I want to say here T is something that implements, I can't remember if I need the impl keyword. Let's try just writing author there. And then I'll try to run that. So we'll have here print author, like that, and see if this works. Does it work? Oh, it does work. Okay, to be honest, I didn't think it would. I was sure I'd forgotten something. But we've got Charles Dickens coming out there. So this is equivalent to this. It's just a different way of writing it. And we can also do that with multiple details, which is the syntax that you probably expect now. It's going to be a plus. So let's have a print details. And now I want to have, now where do I put this? I think I just put in here plus title if I want the title as well. Then I can have something like this. Let's paste that in there. So now we know that whatever item is passed in, it's got to implement the author and title traits. So I should be able to do print details and pass in book. Let's say print details. And if I run this, let's try it and see if it works. Oh, we've got A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens again. So this is just an alternate syntax for this. And there's one more way of doing this, which I can't really remember, but we'll have a go at it. So apparently the motivation for including this syntax I'm about to hopefully show you is that sometimes you have things that implement a lot of traits. So I'll copy this and we'll create a function just called show. So this is going to be a template type function. The item's going to be a reference to T, I think. And then here we can use the keyword where. So where, is there a colon there? I'm not sure. Possibly not. And then it's something like we say T colon author and T colon title. I don't have very high expectations of this being correct, but I'll give that a go. Let's try that. All right, yeah, I missed something off here. Expected one of unexpected token. Is there a colon there? There might be. Let's try that. No, I'm going to look this up. Okay, so I just looked it up and apparently there's no colon there, but I do have to combine these into a single line, which that's not that much better than just writing them there, to be honest. But I think there can probably be a trailing comma there. But I suppose it is a bit clearer if you're just going to list all the traits here. So I'll try cargo format and we'll try cargo run. Yeah, it looks like that's going to be okay. So when I did the format, it's indented this a bit. And if you've got multiple types here, you can list them on like one line after the other if you have T, comma, U or something. So I should be able to use show. Let's duplicate that and just write show in there. And I'll make this output something slightly different. Which function is it that I'm working on? It's this one down here. So this can be book colon, and then we'll make it say the title by the author. All right, so I'm calling that here. Let's try it. Yeah, and it works. Book, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. All right, that's the state of the art of my knowledge at the moment. I had to go over this a few times to really get this right. But it's not so bad, though. Not so bad at all, I would say. Just a little bit fiddly when you're not used to it. So in the next video, now there is a bit of stuff that I've missed off regarding traits having to do with conditional implementation. So I might look at that next time. And then I think the next section of the documentation I'm looking at looks at writing tests for your code, which actually could be really good because then I can write some code and write a test for it as I go along instead of bunging everything maybe into a single sort of big main.rs. Not that this is really that big, but yeah, that could be useful. And then I think the section after that is about implementing some program that does something with files or something, which could be good because I'm really feeling that I really do need to practice Rust now. I've gone through like 12 or 13 sections, is it? Literally reading the documentation and then immediately making a video on it. And it does feel a little bit like everything's piled up in my brain in a very disorganized way that isn't going to stick in there for long. So it definitely would be good to get a bit of proper practice in next. but I'm committed to just working through the docs, and I'm going to try not to do any programming outside of that, at least not for the moment. So I'm going to write this up and put it into some sort of order and add the code and the GitHub repository on blog.caveofprogramming.com. So if you take a look there, you'll be able to find this video and the write-up of it as well. Okay, so until next time, happy coding.